Hello, everyone. Welcome. We have started our live webinar, but we're going to give it a few more seconds until everybody gets in. One of our speakers yesterday was saying how, this is the time where people find their seat, they say hello to each other, and just enter the room. So welcome. I am Lumi Hilchi, German Convention Bureau of New York, here with Shauna Peters. She is our amazing speaker. Shauna is VP Strategic Account Management with MDG, a Freeman company, and she has a really interesting session today. So super excited about it. Let's give it another 20 seconds or so and begin as people start trickling in. So yeah, welcome. Wherever you are, we are working on different time zones. So some places it's good morning and some places it's good afternoon. And thank you for staying late. And I think we can begin. Either way, this session is being recorded, so it can be accessed in our virtual venue. We will make it available. We have a virtual library where we archive all these sessions. So once again, I am Lumi Hilchi, German Convention Bureau, saying hello from a beautiful day in New York City. It's sunny, but not too hot, so it's really nice. This session is part of the German Convention Bureau's summer campaign, Germany at the Heart of Future Events. The campaign is a very big project that we've been organizing for quite a while now, in order to, make it possible for all of us who are still unable to travel internationally and to create this platform where we give access to buyers, suppliers, industry peers to connect or reconnect. The heart of the campaign is our virtual marketplace, which is here. You've made it here through our virtual venue. This marketplace has approximately 70 German suppliers available for appointments today. Well, today is a bit late, I would think, over in Germany, but you are able to make appointments at any time between now and September. So since you're here, check it out if you'd like to and make an appointment, or come back later and make an appointment as well. They are available. The education weeks, which is what you're seeing today, are also another central component of the campaign. And in today's session, we will be discussing with Shauna about a new kind of marketing for events after this year we've all been having. Shauna will talk about what role will event size, location, and safety play in convincing visitors to come back to live events. And we will be touching upon virtual and hybrid experiences and how they will fit in the mix for future events. So Shauna, take over. Thank you so much for making yourself available for us, and we look forward to this.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and speaking with all of you today. So to give you a little sense about where the marketing rules that I'm going to be sharing today come from, I want to start by sharing two competing sentiments around the return to physical events that came out of the research and data team within Freeman. This team conducts a pulse survey, essentially tracking audience sentiment about every 3 months. And they've found that as we move into a post-COVID world, we'll be seeing both a pent-up demand for the commerce and sense of community that live events bring, but also a lingering fear about mass gatherings and germs. So our jobs as event producers and marketers will be to maximize the opportunities associated with the first one while minimizing the fears associated with the second one. So how do we do that? These 5 marketing rules that our team at MDG has adopted were born from these competing sentiments, from research and experimentation and tracking what's working and what's not working in virtual events and marketing as our team returns to in-person events. So just a little stage setting as we move into these marketing rules. So the first one, bigger isn't always better. Historically, event marketers have inundated their audiences with detailed statistics that demonstrate the size of events. We've often talked a lot about the exhibit space, the number of sessions offered, the number of visitors anticipated at our events, all in an attempt to draw a parallel between the magnitude of the event and its value. But right now, those messages are not resonating. Instead, it's really imperative that we home in on value propositions that will compel action. And it's also a good time to inject more empathy, kindness, and authenticity into our communications. In addition to appealing to the rational side of your prospect's brain with reasons to attend, spend some time identifying what some of the key emotional triggers might be that are driving your prospects. A need to join with their community, a fear of becoming irrelevant, a desire to be inspired, or a passion for their profession. And use these emotional triggers as a way of making a more compelling case for action. An appeal that we think will be gaining traction is audiences choosing brands whose corporate mission is aligned with their own personal values and that aggressively contribute to the greater good. These same audiences are rejecting brands whose values don't align with theirs. I think it's easy when we think about this to automatically think about big brands. And so, for example, I'm sharing here from a consumer side, Nike and the campaign that they've run with Colin Kaepernick. This is something where they took a stand with where they believe, with their beliefs. But so then the question is, how does this apply to us in the event and association space? Well, certainly the mission of most associations is to contribute to the good of an industry or professions and the members within it. So how do you take that a step further? As an example, I've seen associations over the past year aggressively support members of their communities who've been negatively impacted by COVID. I've seen them speaking up against social injustice, aligning with charitable causes, making commitments to hold events that are eco-friendly or more inclusive. You get the picture. So if you think about it, this really is a win-win because applying the right level of social responsibility will add authenticity, integrity, and credibility to your event brand. The, I hope, obvious caveat here is that the initiative needs to align ideally with your organization and the values of your audience. So here's an opportunity to be really mindful about what works for your audience and be careful about working with any polarizing political or faith-based causes that may not align with the brand or your audience in particular. So you may want to head for more neutral ground and avoid moral or ethical conflict for your visitors or audience. It's important that these messages are then supported by the right kinds of visuals too. So before we talk visuals, I do want to pause for a quick polling question to get your opinion on those visuals. So thinking about the images that we use to promote physical events, where do you think we should be focusing on those visuals? We've got a few options here for you to choose from. Focusing on those large crowds, people in masks, both, neither. Give everyone a few minutes to weigh in. All right, if we've got, let's see if we can see those results. All right, so it looks like we're about 50% saying both of the above, that we should focus on large crowds and people in masks, about 30% saying neither. And then we've got just a couple in there suggesting that we focus on the masks. And nobody, interestingly enough, selected the large crowds. So that's a pretty interesting split there. And it's interesting that you all voted that way, because those big crowd shots that people really used to focus on, we agree that's not something that we should be going with right now, because they do have that opportunity to exacerbate fears about mass gatherings and that your event could be that petri dish for germs. But it's, in a lot of places, COVID restrictions have loosened up considerably, and organizers aren't necessarily requiring masks or distancing for fully vaccinated individuals. But that doesn't mean that we want to just dive into showing those crowds and people hugging and networking over open food, as you see here in this image. We're not quite ready for that mentally, and that's not quite what we want to suggest the event is going to be about. But on the flip side, in instances where more stringent safety measures are in place, we don't recommend building an entire campaign around people in masks either, because things are moving really quickly, and that's not necessarily where we're going to be. If we start our marketing now, by the time we get to the event, that may not be the reality of everybody fully masked and everything fully distanced. That may not be the reality of what the experience is going to be like. It also may not present something that looks desirable to our audience as something they want to attend. So putting that out there first and foremost may not present something that our audience wants to really get behind. So what we're recommending, and the approach that MDG is using, is a lot of type treatments of single individuals speaking one-on-one with our prospects, artistic imagery that aligns with our imagery in industry. For supporting photos, we're focusing more on content, keynote speakers, educational sessions, maybe small groups around a table. But we don't want to give our audience any reason for concern through the visuals that we're showing or fodder for social media comments. But we want to focus on a way that we can convey more of the value proposition and less focus on exactly what the show used to be or what we expect it's exactly going to look like, knowing that that could really change over the time of our campaign. So for example, here I'm showing you some work that our team did for the National Restaurant Association show. So here you see, again, we are still using people, but we're focusing on the individuals. So we don't have to put them into the show setting necessarily. And so we're focusing on their value proposition. We're using some of that typography treatment for visuals. So again, it doesn't have to necessarily put them directly into the show setting. And another example here for an event called Super Zoo, obviously, since the focus here is on the grooming industry and the pet retail industry, we can focus in on the images of the pets themselves using bright colors and type treatments. We, again, aren't focusing on exactly what the event experience is going to look like. So our second rule here, safety matters, but not as much as you think. And so I know I just told you that you need to change your imagery because visitors care about safety, but you'll notice in the examples that I shared, they did not focus entirely on the safety measures that the events have put in place, even though I said we shouldn't focus our imagery on the big crowds or on the experience itself. We just chose not to focus on the safety itself. Many organizers are eager to share all the safety measures, from touchless registration to wide aisles to enhanced cleaning, that communicating the basic value proposition of the event has taken a back seat. But the same way that you wouldn't eat at a restaurant solely based on its sanitation rating, your audiences won't attend your event just because they're clean, socially distanced, and well ventilated. Before you assure your visitors that an event is safe to attend, you still have to convince them that it's worthwhile to attend. So that means focusing on the value proposition of your event by tapping into the problems you'll solve, fears and desires you will appease, what's unique, what content will resonate now, being empathetic with how they are feeling, and making sure you're mapping the event and messaging back to those hot buttons. Yes, the safety message should be there, but that's almost a given at this point. Everyone expects that there will be some form of safety measure, so you want the information there, but leading with that is not necessarily what's going to get someone to decide to attend the event. So I shared the creative for Super Zoo a couple of slides ago, and I wanted to share how that's playing out through the campaign. So on the website, when you click through from an email or an ad, you'll see that the event is being positioned around the value proposition. So I know it might be a little hard to read, but if you look at the box on the bottom left, be part of the grand reunion. This copy goes on to talk about the safe and controlled environment that is being handled at the event. And if you click through on this box, you're taken to a landing page that's dedicated to the health and safety measures at the event. But this is not what we're leading with to promote the event. Instead, we're talking about all of the things that are going on. We're talking about the hottest new products. We're talking about the education that's going on. We're talking about you're going to leave happier, what you're going to take away from the event. So the value proposition to attend is front and center, but we still have the information about health and safety because this is expected. It is important information and something that our audience needs to know, but it's not what we are leading with. It's not the top information. So our third rule here is bleisure. And I don't know if this is something you've started to see or a concept that maybe you've heard. Bleisure is the blending of business and leisure travel. It's predicted to become a major factor in influencing business travel in a post-COVID era. The Global Web Index, an insights firm, surveyed key business decision makers to ask them what would make them most want to travel for business when it's safe to do so again. And perhaps not surprisingly, they answered the ability to explore new places, having time to themselves, time to relax, keeping their work life varied. While most workers have enjoyed the freedom that working from home has allowed, they've also stressed that they're ready to break up that monotony. It's likely that most workers will crave an escape from their now very familiar office and home hybrid environment. And travel is seen as a way to do that, which is something that we think our industry can definitely start to capitalize on. Some research has suggested that organizers think about expanding their events into interesting locations. So including things like bars and restaurants, museums, even aquariums, zoos, parks, concert venues, famous neighborhoods or markets, or think about incorporating culinary adventures, wine tours, food tastings. For even greater authentic integration, you could provide opportunities for visitors to engage with and volunteer in charitable community activities like food pantries or animal shelters. And if offsite activities aren't possible, you can consider hiring local musicians or using food trucks, having local celebrities from the community speak at your event. Just know that research is suggesting that location and experience are likely going to matter more than they have in the recent past. And while we have typically not focused on location in our marketing, given this new blending of business and leisure travel, we do see an increased opportunity to incorporate the location into the marketing approach. So like with the safety approach, it shouldn't be the focus of the marketing message, but more so than in the past, incorporating places to explore, unique activities and experiences into the message can certainly serve as an incentive to those who have that sort of pent-up wanderlust and are seeking experiences that they haven't had in the last year or year plus, as a way to incorporate some enticement into the marketing message. So in our fourth rule, digital marketing matters more than you think. We have found direct marketing to be less effective as industry disruption has decimated databases for many of our clients. And email fatigue has led to increased opt-outs and disengagement for many others. On the other hand, digital marketing tactics, including search engine marketing, programmatic advertising, paid and organic social, and retargeting are proving to be particularly effective at reaching and engaging our audiences, especially those that are outside of our house lists. So we're finding this to be a really good time to invest in people, tools, and resources to execute sophisticated digital marketing campaigns. You may have seen similar trends. For the US, especially at the end of last year, there were a lot of furloughs, a lot of job changes, unfortunately, a lot of layoffs that led to some massive data challenges for many of our clients. We had a lot of people out of work, which meant that our databases were no longer accurate and we could not rely on our house lists because they just really weren't that strong anymore. So our most successful campaigns have strong digital components, and that can also include some partner promotions, thinking of things like engaging influencers or speakers or exhibitors, any other type of partner who's engaged with the event, who also can spread the message to their networks to help increase the reach and engagement of the campaign. We're also finding registration patterns to look more like this pattern that you see here. Interestingly enough, we saw this trend start with events when they were all digital, but we're seeing this continue as we move into more hybrid and in-person events starting to take place. It's actually remaining pretty much the same. And this example is from one event, but it's pretty much the same pattern that we've seen with nearly all events that are mirroring it, which is another reason why digital marketing is working really well right now, because it can be implemented and adjusted right up to the event when we are seeing a lot of those decisions being made. So you'll see reflected here kind of a rough timeline of the customer journey, which for us is way more condensed than it used to be. Prior to COVID, we typically saw our customer journeys start as far out as 6 months in advance of an event. Now we're really seeing the customer campaign reduced to approximately 12 weeks. So we can start 6 months out. And even if you do, what you're really extending is the awareness phase of your campaign. People are not really considering or committing to anything too far in advance right now, with how quickly things are changing. So what we're leading with are things like content. We want to build credibility and work on acquiring leads. And again, this is where digital can be really important to us. It's a great opportunity to start at that sort of top of the funnel, especially as we're looking to acquire leads, given how challenged our house lists are. So this is where we're focusing on that lead acquisition tactics to backfill the depleted database and then nurturing into the event sales process as the event timeline approaches. We are finding that the scarcity principle is also working pretty well right now. We've joked that maybe this is left over from when we were all afraid of running out of toilet paper, but essentially we have a few events where we limit the number of registrations and push that limit as a way to create this fear of missing out. And in some events that are coming back in person, we do actually have event limitations, as not all venues are up to full capacity yet. So that is an opportunity to leverage what is still rather frustrating to not be at full capacity, but does give us a little bit of an opportunity to use that to our advantage currently, to suggest that those people who are considering to come in person do need to not wait to the last minute or run the risk of having to be on a wait list or having to participate in the virtual capacity, as they may not be able to make it to the in-person if we are limited in our space, while we still have space limitations or distancing requirements that don't allow us to get to full capacity for some of those events. And that does give us some opportunity for urgency, because as I showed you with our current registration patterns, we are seeing people wait to the last minute as they make sure they still have the comfort, while they make sure they have the ability to go to an event in person, while they make sure that everything is aligning, that they have the travel budgets and all of those things. So making sure that we can give them some type of urgency factor to register. Scarcity has been something that is working recently. So let's shift gears and talk about hybrid events. And again, here out of curiosity, I'd like to bring up another polling question to see how your answers compare with the Freeman research from its pulse surveys. So think about an online event you've participated in the past year and answer this question here. What's the best thing about digital events? Is their ability to, which one best fits for you? Facilitate learning, facilitate commerce, connections, convenience, or nothing really good in digital events for you personally? Give everyone a couple of seconds here. right. Let's see what we got. All right, well, good. Nobody said there was nothing good about digital, so that's a good thing. Looks like the majority here have said, allow me the convenience I need to efficiently find, consume, and engage with the content need and want. That's about what I would expect. And then our next highest would be facilitate learning and disseminate knowledge. So that's about what I would expect to see, and definitely aligns with the Freeman research, which really showed that the visitors' most value coming out of digital events had to do with accessing learning and content. And secondly, the one that kind of came in number 2 was overall ease and convenience. Obviously, when you're not having to book a flight and a hotel and take time literally away from the office, that there was some value seen there. Where digital continues to struggle is in connecting audiences, both peer-to-peer and peer-to-partner. So the networking and the commerce aspects of digital events, in all of the research that we've been conducting for over a year now, that has continued to fall short as far as the surveys have said here. And we've done a lot of post-event research for our clients, and there have been a lot of exhibitors who have not really been thrilled with the experience and value for the money. And that's where the big challenge has been with digital events. But we don't believe that means digital events are going away entirely. And at the start of the pandemic, we were all kind of in this mad rush to cobble together an online event just to replace our physical one. That was our key focus. But now that we're all out of that reaction mode and starting to plan physical events again, we really need to be asking ourselves, what do we continue to offer? Is it just one big annual event that happens at a fixed point in time? Or do we want to develop a more robust, holistic plan for delivering our content? So as event organizers moving into the future, we need to think not just about hybrid in the traditional sense, meaning broadcasting certain elements of a physical event, but about webinars, peer-to-peer roundtables, podcasts, community management platforms that can happen year round, and think about how that should all work together to meet the needs of our audience. And so one of the ways that we've been thinking about this is with these circles that hopefully aren't hypnotizing you at the moment. But if you look at the circle on the far left, this is sort of how we saw the pre-COVID state of events. At the very top, so we have January there at the month at the top, we might have an in-person event. Maybe we streamed something. Some people were, some people weren't. Maybe there was something virtual, but that's kind of where our content and our event all sort of lived in that one period of time. And everything else is sort of dark. We didn't necessarily do anything else at any other points in time. If you move to the center circle, this is sort of what we see as current state, or at least the state that we've been in for roughly the past year, where the in-person circle has now gone dark and we moved into something that was virtual streaming content. But now we did sort of extend that. A lot of people did experiment with having things take place over a longer period of time. Maybe it lasted for a couple of months or 2 to 3 months. And we had a little bit more that we were offering in maybe a couple of platforms or over a period of time. And that's opened the door in our eyes to looking at how we might be able to do that a little bit differently. What we're now calling an integrated model mix, and the reason we're calling it integrated and not hybrid is that I think there's a little too much tied up with the word hybrid. But what we think is a real viable possibility and something for us all to consider as we move into what the future could look like as we bring in-person back is considering in-person at multiple points in time. And obviously there's plenty of organizations and associations that do host more than one in-person event over the course of the year. But looking at in-person at multiple times, whether that's one large, national or international event with smaller regional events, or whether it's a series of different types of in-person events. But now looking at our streaming circle as something that can be an always on. So what can we stream at different points in time, not just aligned with our in-person experiences, but streaming things at multiple points throughout the year, and looking at virtual experiences through different platforms, different types of virtual virtual components that maybe align at different points in time and with our in-person events, but that there's virtual opportunities that do take place year-round, making our content something that is a year-round platform. So now we see the content ring is filled in throughout the course of the year. And perhaps one of our more important things here noted is that the innermost circle, our green data ring, is filled in completely. So not just looking at collecting, managing, and disseminating data as it aligns with our in-person events, but making sure that data is part of this factor that is year-round as well, because that does not only fuel our events, but then is also information that can be used in understanding our audiences and delivering that content and those experiences that they're looking for. And when everything becomes audience-centric, now we're increasing the value proposition of what we're delivering back to the audiences. So this is something that we think of as a potential future state that we think will help strengthen the events industry as a whole, and is something that we think we should all be considering as we move back into in-person and whatever form of hybrid we all start to take on. So I know I talk quickly, and I know that was a lot that I just threw out there. So I wanted to sort of summarize what it was that we just talked through. So the 5 sort of new rules of marketing that my team has been adopting and that we're starting to consider as we come out of our COVID world is that we're taking a new look at creative through a new lens. We're not just focusing on the size of our events, but we're really focusing on that value proposition. And we're doing that too when we think about safety. We're leading with that value proposition and not leading with the safety message. We're incorporating the concept of leisure travel and into our messaging as well. We see an importance in that travel ability on the rise. We are using digital marketing to fill the holes in our databases, and we're focusing more and more on that digital opportunity to bring in new audiences and to take them through our customer journey and through our funnel. And then we're thinking about hybrid intentionally. We're thinking about how the online digital experiences fit into our in-person experiences. And so I want to leave you with one last thought that came up in one of our roundtables earlier on in the year, is that's to pay proper respect to your future. You must pay proper disrespect to your past.
Thank you so much, Shauna. A lot of super interesting information that will help us event organizers adjust our expectations about what the attendees expect. And so we have a lot of learning to do right now and just adjustment. We do have a couple questions though. One of them is, can you provide a few details, if you can, about how to identify target audiences beyond the database, which, as you said, it's weird right now with, you know, moving around and the losses.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the ways that we do that is we like to start with personas, and there's a couple of different ways you can identify personas. One of them is starting with a look at who has attended your events in the past and breaking those down into, often we look at it by job function, but you'll have to look at, you know, who the audiences are and how you can best categorize your audience. So often job function is a good way to look at your audiences and identify who comes and who should be coming to your events. You can look at the profile of who has been in your database. Now, even if they're not currently there, but look at the profiles of those who've been in your database, and then look at how you can find those people elsewhere. So you can look at publications, other organizations or associations where you might find those audiences, but build what you essentially would be a lookalike audience. So if you can identify people, whether that's breaking them down in different types of profiles or through job functions, and then look for ways to identify them in other locations. So that's, looking for other ways to profile them. If you're using digital software, so if you use through Facebook, other social platforms, if you use some of the Google tools, depending on what it is that you're using, they have different ways you can build lookalike audiences by plugging in some of those key data points like job function, if you have age ranges, demographic information or firmographic information about the types of companies that they work for. It'll help you build what is essentially a lookalike audience to the audience that you already know comes to your event.
Thank you. This is really great advice. Thank you. Thank you. One more question. How can I use hybrid or online platforms to extend the life of in-person events?
So again, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that or think about doing that. And so, one of the things that I think a lot of people get stuck in is thinking that you have to live stream certain sessions that are happening right now in your physical event. But there's a lot of different ways that it can be done. And I think people get hung up on the cost because we do know that live streaming can be expensive. And there's concern about how to do that, or there's concern about manpower hours. If I have my team on site at my event, then who's going to man the virtual components? And I've heard that concern a lot in some of the roundtable sessions that we conduct with our clients. And live streaming can obviously be a great solution to helping to extend your in-person event, especially when you have audiences who are not able to travel or ready to travel yet. But I think if you're going to take that route, you want to be judicious about what you're offering in your online component. But if that's not going to be an option for you, then I think being able to identify what you think is the best opportunity to offer online and recording it and then repackaging it online. That I think gives you an opportunity to extend things even year round. And it doesn't just have to be done in a recorded opportunity. You can then turn that content into white papers. You could turn that content into infographics. You could turn content into other forms that are consumable in different ways. And this again goes back to understanding what your audience wants and how they want to consume content. So they may want it in a full session where they can sit and listen, but maybe you could also turn things into bite-sized takeaways that they're going to consume in smaller amounts, that you could then make into, we have a client that's created videos that they're calling Spark videos that are 30 seconds or less. So they're boiling down their larger content into 30-second takeaway videos that can then be consumed in different formats. So looking at what your audience wants and how they best consume their content will also help you identify how you can use it in different platforms and with your audience beyond just the event. It could even be used for a membership campaign in the future. So being able to think beyond just the limitation of the event over 2 or 3 days will really extend the content.
Thank you. And I think some of us have already been doing this too. So it's good to see, we're doing the right thing here and there. And one last question, you did mention the capacity limitations with different venues. How can we ensure the right audience is attending if we have limitations?
Yes. So one of the things that we're actually starting to see a little bit more of because of that is we're taking a little bit more of an account-based management approach when that is a real concern. And so especially if you have an audience where you know that you really want to have buyers attend, let's say, and especially if you're in an industry where you know who those buyers are, or your exhibitors are asking for a particular type of audience to attend, this is a real opportunity to use an account-based management approach to your marketing. And it's almost how you would take an approach to your exhibit sales, where you're targeting specific companies, you're looking at buying teams, and you're almost taking a sales approach to bringing those people in, rather than your more mass marketing approach, where you would be going out to a much larger database and whoever registers is going to register, because then you do run the risk of your limited number of audience seats being taken by those who maybe aren't as high up in your buying funnel or are going to be as valuable of an audience to your exhibitors. But if you're focused on the highest value accounts and those who you know have a purchasing or buying role, then you're bringing them in as a targeted audience and you're almost inviting them to attend. So it's a little bit more of a one-to-one sale, but that helps ensure, especially if you have a limitation, that that audience is going to be there.
And I think too, if they feel that it's exclusive, then they will come too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's kind of a win-win on that approach.
Makes you feel better, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful and really, at least for me, different from what I've heard before. So really, really appreciate your time. This is it for us. It is being recorded, so we will put it on our venue for usage by others, by anybody's networks, if you'd like to share. So thank you. Again, if you'd like to access the exhibition throughout this venue, you can click on the summer campaign exhibition menu option, so you can find other suppliers in there. And we do have more education coming up next week, and we will be communicating about those sessions as well in the coming days, reminding everybody. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Shauna, for your time. I wish you all a wonderful day and evening. And yeah, hope to see everybody in person sooner rather than later. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.